Hey, I'm John, and I went on a road trip to find answers to some of life's biggest questions.
Hi, John. I'm Professor Plink. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. John here is the proprietor of the channel Road Trip to Truth, a series of videos where he travels around the country and talks to people from all over, almost exclusively about God, religion, why atheism is wrong, and why atheists are foolish or illogical. And that is one of the ones we're going to be looking at today. John is going to be telling us all about what atheists, which he is not one, really think and believe, and then why, in point of fact, atheists can't actually exist at all. Oh no, John's right. It's happening. I'm fading away. Help me. Help me. Whoa, I'm still here. Maybe we can't exist after all. Well, if John could be wrong about that, I wonder how much more wrong he managed to pack in under 2 minutes of a video. So let's give John's road trip a little look-see and check out what he has to say about atheists. But before we get into that, if you end up liking what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe, click the bell so you'll always be notified when new content comes out. Check out my social media, including my Patreon and Twitter, all linked in the description. And of course, like this video, pop in a comment. All that goes a long way towards pleasing the YouTube algorithm. Let us all join the Church of the Benevolent Algorithmo, if for nothing else than to stick in the craw of anti-atheist apologists who crack on about how atheism is just another religion.
Atheists and secularists are now starting churches. Yeah, they really are.
And keeping my channel motoring along. Also, before we get going, I want to give a shout out to Lean Beans, who sent in this lovely little piece of fan art. This is clearly a portrait of one of my bicloptic cousins, but very cute all the same, because all of us pink tribbles are the height of aesthetic perfection. And if you have any fan art you'd like to send me, email is down in the description. Now on to today's video.
Atheism, strictly defined, is an absolute truth claim that says there is no God.
Atheism. Disbelief or lack of belief in the existence of God or gods. Atheism. A lack of belief or strong disbelief in the existence of God or any gods, and a philosophical or religion position characterized by a disbelief in the existence of a god or any gods. Atheism, in general, is the critique and denial of metaphysical beliefs in God or spiritual beings. According to American Atheists, atheism is one thing, a lack of a belief in gods. Atheism is not an affirmative belief that there is no God, nor does it answer any other question about what a person believes. It is simply a rejection of the assertion that there are gods. Atheism is too often defined incorrectly as a belief system. To be clear, atheism is not a disbelief in gods or a denial of gods. It is a lack of belief in gods. Even the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which theists who want to insist that atheism is a positive assertion that God does not exist, are always quick to cite, because it does include a definition of atheism that says that. But it precedes that definition with a more common definition that states, in the psychological sense of the word, atheism is a psychological state, specifically the state of being an atheist, where an atheist is defined as someone who is not a theist, and a theist is defined as someone who believes that God exists or that there are gods. This generates the following definition. Atheism is the psychological state of lacking the belief that God exists. So pretty much no matter where you look, assuming you're getting your info from a reputable and valid source, you're going to find the primary definition of atheism as not believing in the existence of any god or gods, or some variation of that. So to start off insisting that atheism is making an absolute knowledge claim is to erect a straw man in the first 5 seconds of your video. Gee, do you think the rest of it is going to be trying to tear down that straw man and then being completely pointless since you aren't getting atheism right out of the gate?
Gee, let me think.
Sure.
But there can be no atheists because no one has all knowledge of all events, for all places, in all times, to be able to make the definitive claim that there's absolutely, positively no God.
Well, it's a good thing we aren't doing that then. But to further dig into this, one does not need to have all knowledge of all events, all places, and all times throughout all of the existence of the universe in order to say that something doesn't exist. If the conditions of the thing's existence are impossible or logically contradictory, we can say, even without perfect knowledge, that they can't exist. You can't have married bachelors. You can't have a round square. And you can't have an omniscient being who walks around the Garden of Eden calling out for Adam and Eve because somehow he doesn't know where they are, even though he's supposed to be omniscient. Or the logical contradiction of God encapsulated in the Epicurus trilemma. Is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he's not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he's malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? There are aspects of any monotheistic, all-powerful God concept that do not pass the philosophical sniff test, and is therefore, at least arguably, impossible to exist in the first place. And we're avoiding a devolving of the definition of God down to something like, well, God is just love, or God just means the universe, so if the universe exists, then God exists. Because that's just muddying the waters of what we're talking about here. In common parlance, God means something very specific. An intelligent, willful, supernaturally powerful, and metaphysically existent entity responsible for the creation of the universe or the planet or life itself. And that being requires the existence of the supernatural and metaphysics to even possibly exist, neither of which have been determined to be real in the first place. So atheists are more than on solid footing in not believing in such a being, which again is all atheism is in the first place.
That leaves us with theism, a general belief or acknowledgement that there is a deity.
But this definition of theism shoots your previous definition of atheism in the foot. I mean, if theism is nothing more than the belief in or acknowledgement that there is a deity, then the opposite of that would be lacking belief in or not acknowledging a deity, wouldn't it? And what would we call a person who lacks a belief in a deity? Well, it would be not a theist. Someone without theism. An atheist, if you will. I mean, if you're going to position theism as the polar opposite of atheism, and you start off with the claim that atheism insists that God does not exist, then shouldn't theism be defined as an insistence that God does exist? Why are you being charitable to theism and only positioning it as a belief, but atheism you claim as an absolute knowledge claim?
This worldview does not demand all knowledge, but just a little bit of logic and reason.
But one would have to have particular specific knowledge. No, I don't need to know, for instance, every human in the world to know that there is one human named Herschel McGillicuddy in Topeka, Kansas, but I would have to have specific knowledge of someone named Herschel McGillicuddy in Topeka, Kansas. You can't insist that such a person exists if you have no direct knowledge or evidence of such a person's existence. So for a theist to be making an absolute knowledge claim of God's existence, they would have to have that direct knowledge and evidence of God's existence for their theism to be valid. Oh, but that's right. Theists aren't making an absolute knowledge claim, according to John. Only atheists are doing that. Theists just believe that there is a God. I forgot. The burden of proof is all on the atheists here. See, as long as you improperly define your opponent and their position, you can do damn near anything with your rhetoric.
Think of it like this. If you speed down a country road and there's no speed limit signs posted by an authority, if a farmer yells at you to slow down, you could just shout back, "That's just your preference." You can say that because without an objective lawgiver, the farmer can only prefer that you slow down. He can't insist that you're breaking a law or that you must slow down to pay a consequence. Let's reason backwards. Every culture for all time has agreed that some behaviors are universally wrong.
No, there aren't. This is a pernicious falsehood that is regularly trotted out by apologists trying to establish the idea of universal objective morality. It is patently untrue. There is not a single moral or ethical principle, value judgment, or standpoint on right and wrong that has been agreed upon by every culture throughout all of human history. Not a single one. Come on, John. Give me your best shot on what you think this is. What do you think is a universally wrong thing that every human society and culture has agreed to?
People don't say, I'd prefer that you don't kill that child.
Child killing as a universal moral absolute. Oh, John, why didn't you give me something difficult? Child sacrifice is the ritualistic killing of children in order to please or appease a deity, supernatural beings, or sacred social order, tribal, group, or national loyalties in order to achieve a desired result. As such, it is a form of human sacrifice. While the specific rationales and occasions for offering children as sacrifices varied from culture to culture, the practice has been widespread on all the inhabited continents. And you can see in the content section there on the left just some of the places where cultures that practice the ritual killing of children occurred. And the ironic part about all of this is that John is defending theists here as the believers in these moral absolutes, like not killing children, when all of these sacrifices were carried out exclusively by theists. But that was just the religious reasons that cultures engaged in the killing of children. There were secular reasons it was done as well. Not just allowed, but encouraged. Infanticide, or infant homicide, is the intentional killing of infants or offspring. Infanticide was a widespread practice throughout human history that was mainly used to dispose of unwanted children, its main purpose being the prevention of resources being spent on weak or disabled offspring. Unwanted infants were usually abandoned to die of exposure, but in some societies they were deliberately killed. Most Stone Age human societies routinely practiced infanticide, and estimates of children killed by infanticide in the Mesolithic and Neolithic eras vary from 15 to 50%. So it was a widespread, common practice for much of human history. Not some absolute taboo and a universally reviled immorality, as John claims. And even looking at it through a theistic Christian lens, how can you claim that not killing children is a moral absolute? God commanded Abraham to kill his son Isaac. Are you saying that God did something immoral? That God, who is all good all the time, violated objective moral law? What about in Deuteronomy, when people are commanded to take their unruly, rebellious sons to the city gate so that the townspeople can gather together and stone him to death? Geez, John, give me something that takes longer than a 5-second Google search to debunk.
We know there are moral absolutes. Those morals are our signs that point to a moral lawgiver. If a moral lawgiver did not exist, there would be no moral absolutes.
And since there are no moral absolutes, there's no moral lawgiver. I mean, I just debunked one supposed moral absolute, but you can do this with literally anything that people like John want to trot out. There is not one single universal moral position that every society, every culture, every subculture, everywhere throughout all of human history has agreed with. Now, the common retort from theists, if you can ever get them to acknowledge that fact, is that those cultures who did those things knew they were doing wrong, but just did it anyway. Even if they claimed the bad, evil gods that they worshipped, translation, any god I don't personally believe in, they had a sense deep down that what they were doing was wrong. So it's still a valid universal moral law as I've claimed it. And since they can't prove or be expected to prove what was in the minds and feelings of people thousands of years ago, they don't have to prove their assertion that those people killing kids knew that it was wrong to do so. And that's how they can continue to insist that there are indeed moral absolutes, even though there is no justification for that claim.
But we know that there are moral absolutes.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
And that was the end of John's short, unsweet, and horribly fallacious attempt to insist that atheists can't exist. And look at us, we're all still here. He started off with a straw man definition of atheism, which ended up making every point that followed wrong because it was built on a bullshit foundation. He positioned theism as atheism's opposite, yet didn't give it an opposite definition, thereby giving theists the out of saying theirs is just a belief, not a knowledge claim. He insisted on the existence of absolute, objective morality, which was so easy to debunk, especially with the example that he gave, that I'm surprised even he managed to say it with a straight face. Though, it was just a voiceover, so perhaps he was laughing his ass off while he was recording himself. Or maybe John has such a poor understanding of history and non-modern Western cultures that he actually thinks everyone throughout all of time loved their kids unconditionally, and that the very thought of doing physical harm to them was downright unthinkable. Even though it certainly wasn't unthinkable to the God that John wants to advocate for, who just loved sicking his pet bears on kids who dared to insult male pattern baldness. And if this video is an indication of the kinds of things John is going to be learning on his trip around the country, it's going to be a very long, very sad, and very intellectually stunted road trip indeed. So that is where we'll leave things for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when a new video comes out. Don't forget to check out my Twitter and Patreon if you'd like to support me directly, my Teespring if you want some Plinky merch, all that linked below in the description. Until next time, I'm Professor Plink reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.